Wow, I had a great childhood. I was the sixth of nine children. I had five sisters and three brothers, two of which were older brothers. My father was a Cleveland police detective for 32 years. He was in uniform for two, and I never saw him by the time I came along. He went to war. He left two kids at home. He was a B-24 gunner, and he flew in the planes, and he was able to survive, come home and have seven more kids, and I was one of those seven, so I was really glad he came home. And but we had my grandmother's parents living in the same house, so there was two parents, two grandparents, and nine kids. And so the joke always was we had to go outside just to change our mind, kind of thing. And but I thought everybody had a bunk bed. I'd go to my friend's house. What happened to your bed? Who took off the top half? But it's the sense of family was created by my mom and my dad. We always knew how special we were, and we were taught, and it's just a byproduct that I always say when things are at their worst, the Patton family's at their best, because I've gone through a couple of things in my life where I've been challenged, and they were always there. And although I would say that my father is and was and continues to be the best man I've ever known, if you force me to say what's the worst I can say about Johnny Patton, was that he was just barely good enough for my mother, who was Hall of Fame first ballot. She had nine kids and everybody thought they were the favorite. How she fooled the other eight as long as she did, I don't know, but we all felt we were the favorite. That was a unique thing that, as a parent myself now, I've always tried to, utilize some of the lessons in parenting that both my mom and dad gave us. My opponents they're good people. I just think that in the experience department, and they say experience matters. I've had the opportunity to be in leadership. In those 6-year period that I was the majority leader in the Senate, 91% of the bills got some bipartisan support. And if you ask anybody what needs to be done in Washington, they say people have to be willing to cross the aisle and get things done. I didn't come from a wealthy family, but I came from a great family. I learned a lot of family values. And as my daughters, when they're talking to folks in the district, says he treats everybody in the district just like they're his family. And that's kind of, if they call it the problem, we're on it just like if it was one of my sisters calling. I didn't wake up one day saying, you know what, I want to go to Congress. Candidly, I never thought about running for Congress. When Jimmy Renacci told me, and by the way, Mr. Renacci's supporting us, and I'm proud of that, because he's leaving it behind. He's trying to leave it in good hands, and he thought ours was the best hands, and we appreciate that. We just think, that, and as I say, I wasn't planning on it, and it actually took me some months to kind of come up with the idea that could I make a difference? Would I make a difference? Was I better off down here? But once again, as I look at those problems, and I look at those grandchildren of mine and my daughters and say, it's my time to turn the world over pretty soon, I don't like what I'm getting ready to turn over. I want to change it. This is what decided it for me. Those 7, soon-to-be 8 grandchildren of mine, their share of the national debt, each, is $131,000. You can talk 20 trillion. I always sometimes tell people, what comes after trillion? Do you even know? And it's just scary. And yet, Ohio, in one breath you brag and say, ever since I've been in Columbus, we've balanced the budget. As most people know, Ohio has a constitutional amendment. You have to balance the budget, so it's false. It's almost a false statement. But 49 of the 50 states in this country have a balanced budget law on the books. Every bit of Vermont. So if the states can balance their budget, why can't the nation balance its budget? When you're looking at a $20 trillion debt, why don't we set up a plan? We're going to shave $1 to $2 billion. If it's $1 billion trillion, $1 to $2 trillion off of that debt every single year. Okay, it could be somewhere between a 10 or 15-year plan that we're debt-free, that we've gotten rid of the national debt. I do think that there's a call to service, it's like my father's always done, and my family's been very, very public service oriented, and it's just something I think is in the DNA. I met my wife, we were early in my junior year in high school. I always joke she was the only girl I dated after I had my driver's license, because we started seeing each other before I got it, and like a month later I got it. And so the nuns had moved me ahead, so I actually started college at 17. I was married at 18. and then I was a father at 19. So life kind of came at me fast. But it's good to be young with your kids. And my wife and I had been blessed. I have 6 wonderful kids, and I used to joke and say they're all boys except 5, but having 5 sisters and 5 daughters is really a blessing, and while we suffered an unbearable loss when we lost my wife at 29, 2 years to the day that she had been diagnosed with this leiomyosarcoma, and but just recently I thought one of the benefits of that, if you look for that silver lining of that very, very dark cloud, was I can't imagine fathers being as close to their daughters as I am to mine. I got 2 phone calls this afternoon at the office. 2 of them just checking in on you, like, what's your schedule? You coming home tonight? Or what's your tomorrow? How did it go today? Because we had a kind of a tough week last week with the circumstances in the family, and they're just checking on you. And so I always do it. People try to compliment me on you did such a wonderful job raising those kids, and I said they did a pretty good job raising me. Obviously, we had just the one boy, and he was 3rd. So that answers the question, did we keep going until we had a boy? I said, no. He was 3rd, but it took me 6 times to get those 5 girls. That's the comeback answer to that. And Tommy, like his grandfather and his godfather, his Uncle Timmy, and 4 of his cousins, decided to become a police officer. And he served valiantly and bravely for 9.5 years. And again, tragically, we lost Tommy in the line of duty, and that was that's the pain that doesn't go away. I would respond that 22% of the voters that live in my district are union people and their families, and I think that to ignore that almost 1 in 4 people and say, well, I don't like your ideology. I think that if you take a look at who elected President Trump, it was the same blue-collar people who have supported me. I think that both of my Irish grandfathers that kept my parents in high school so they can graduate, barely above water, but they were union guys. The Irish had trouble getting jobs when they came to this country. They were immigrants. One became a pipe fitter, one became an operating engineer, and I think that when we take a look at our population, these are good, hard-working Americans. They don't ask any quarter. We don't, even on a training standpoint, 75 cents an hour that these union guys make, they pay back to the training centers, and their contractors are delighted to match that. Because when Joe Bag of Donuts, after 35 years of being a sheet metal worker, is getting ready to walk out the door, instead of saying, what are we going to do, they got Joe Jr., who's just finished his 5 or 6 years of training, probably even on some newer equipment, probably even better training than his father 35 years into the trade. And what has it cost the state of Ohio? Nothing, because they've paid for it themselves. I've invited my colleagues, several of them, to go to the training centers, and they've taken advantage of the carpenters training centers, along the operating engineers training center, sheet metal training center, and it's state-of-the-art stuff. And so much so that when my last year in the Senate, when they were trying to do a project labor agreement vote, they voted it out of the House, even though we in the Senate President said, you don't have the votes here, and they thought we were bluffing, and they had 8 votes out of 33. It was 24-8. So Tom Patton's not the only Republican senator that's at least listening to, the issues of job training. We talk about job training all the time. One of the things we need to do, in my opinion, is to sit down with some of these kids in 7th and 8th and 9th grade, because I think parents believe they're a failure if their kids don't go to college. So go ahead, let them go to college. They're the best students in the world. So they go to college, they immediately come out with $60,000, $70,000 with their freshman year debt, and then they say they don't want to go to college, but they still got the debt for the loans that they had. But they're remarkable with their hands, or they've got skills that they can do, that they can employ. And what we have to let the parents know, if they're a $90,000 a year operating engineer, all right, they're providing for their family, they're buying a nice house for their family, they're educating their kids, and their kids have the opportunity for a better life. That's not a bad outcome. Comparatively, here's an comparison. I had talked to a mom who said, My daughter went through school. She went to Cleveland State. She got her master's degree in social work. She's working for Cuyahoga County for $33,000. She goes, and she's got $100 and some thousand student debt. What do you tell her? I mean, someone just sat down and said, if you want to be a social worker, this is what your net result is going to be. And so we need to do a better job of telling the folks at the front end. Right now, it's estimated we have 125,000 jobs that could be filled tomorrow if we had the people trained and skilled to do it. We don't. We need truck drivers. We need welders. We need nurses. We need all those things. But the focus isn't on trying to match up the job to the kids. I know in visiting folks at the hospital, I see more and more male nurses than I've ever seen before. That's a good thing. Because they find out, you know what? I lost my job on an assembly line, but I went back to school, and now I'm trained now. I'm an RN. I can do nursing, and I'm making $65,000, $75,000 a year.